Right now, as you are watching this, millions of older adults across the United States are taking vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium in ways that quietly create a biochemical storm inside the body. These are supplements that most people trust. Many take them every morning without a second thought. They seem safe, simple, and even essential for aging well. Yet, when they are taken at the wrong time, in the wrong form, or in the wrong combination, they can overstimulate your heart, overwhelm your nervous system, and push your organs into stress they were never designed to handle. Imagine your heart receiving signals faster than it can process. Your brain trying to regulate electrical impulses that fire out of rhythm, your blood chemistry shifting so sharply that your body must scramble just to stay balanced. This is what happens when these three nutrients are not coordinated properly. What begins as a healthy habit can suddenly lead to palpitations, nerve agitation, dizziness, waves of nausea, spikes in blood pressure, and a level of kidney strain that quietly builds over time. I have seen many older adults believe they were doing everything right. They were trying to strengthen their bones, protect their heart, or improve their energy. But the truth is that D3, K2, and magnesium are powerful. They influence calcium movement, nerve conduction, vascular function, and kidney workload. If one of them is out of sync, the entire system becomes unstable. It does not happen all at once. It happens gradually, silently, until the symptoms begin to show up in ways that feel confusing and unexpected. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you a simple question because it helps me guide this entire lesson. How old are you, and which of these are you currently taking? Are you using vitamin D3? Are you pairing it with K2? Are you taking magnesium every day? Let me know in the comments because I read them and respond, and it helps me understand what guidance you may personally need. Many seniors take these supplements with good intentions, yet they often do not realize how easy it is to create silent imbalances inside the body. What surprises most people is that 6 out of 10 older adults who use vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium are already taking them in a way that is out of sync. They may take them at the wrong hour, in the wrong form, or in a dose that does not match what their body actually needs. Everything feels normal on the outside, so they continue the routine for weeks or even years without knowing that an internal chain reaction is quietly building. This is where the hidden danger begins. When the balance between these three nutrients is off, calcium begins to move unpredictably throughout the body. Too much calcium ends up floating in the bloodstream instead of being guided into the bones. The nerves start receiving signals that are too strong or too frequent, leaving them overstimulated. The heart, which depends on a perfect ratio of calcium and magnesium for every beat, begins to feel the strain. Even the kidneys, which work tirelessly to filter the blood, can become overloaded when they are suddenly forced to process more calcium than they were designed to handle. All of this happens quietly at first. There is no warning light on the dashboard. There is no sudden pain that tells you something is wrong. This is why many people do not connect their symptoms with their supplements. They may feel a little more tired, a little more anxious, a little more sensitive to heat or stress. They may notice occasional palpitations, a restless night of sleep, or mild muscle twitching and assume it is just part of getting older. But in reality, these can be early signs that the system is slipping out of balance. D3, K2, and magnesium must operate as a coordinated system, almost like members of a medical team that each perform a different but essential job. Vitamin D3 increases how much calcium enters the body. Vitamin K2 directs that calcium to the right places, especially the bones. Magnesium helps regulate nerve signals, heart rhythm, and the proper use of calcium at the cellular level. When one of them is too low or too high compared with the others, the entire structure becomes unstable. That instability can show up as calcium overload, nerve overstimulation, electrolyte chaos, and kidney burden that slowly intensifies. We are about to walk through the 6 specific effects that occur when this imbalance grows. Each one is important, and each one helps you understand not only what is going wrong, but also how to correct the problem before it leads to long-term damage. When we talk about magnesium, most people think of it as the relaxation mineral, something you take at night to ease muscle tension or help you sleep a little better. But the truth is far deeper than that. Magnesium is actually the master controller of the electrical activity running through your entire nervous system. Every nerve signal that travels from your brain, every message that tells your muscles to move, every rhythm that keeps your heart beating on time, All of it depends on the steady presence of magnesium. Without enough of it, the electrical wiring of the body becomes unstable. This is where vitamin D3 enters the picture. When you take D3, you dramatically increase the amount of calcium your body absorbs from food. Calcium is essential, but it is also highly active. It makes muscles contract, it stimulates nerve pathways, and it pushes the heart to work harder. As calcium rises, your body uses more magnesium to control and regulate that increased activity. Over time, this drains magnesium stores until the balance between the two minerals is completely disrupted. Instead of moving in harmony, they begin to work against each other, and that delicate dance that keeps your nervous system calm begins to fall apart. When that balance slips, the symptoms can show up in surprising ways. Many people first notice tiny muscle twitches that appear without warning. They may feel their calves suddenly jump, their foot tighten, or their shoulder flutter for a few seconds before relaxing again. Others experience severe muscle cramps that strike in the middle of the night, the kind that force you out of bed because the pain is so sharp and intense. Some people develop eyelid twitching that lasts for days, something that feels small but becomes incredibly frustrating when it will not stop. The nerves themselves begin to misfire. You may feel tingling in your hands or feet, or a numbness that comes and goes. Restless legs can appear, making it difficult to sit still or fall asleep. And in more serious cases, the heart muscle, which depends on calcium for contraction and magnesium for relaxation, begins to receive conflicting signals. That can lead to irregular rhythms, moments where the heartbeat feels too fast, too slow, or completely out of pattern. Many older adults have told me they thought it was anxiety or stress, but often the true cause is much simpler. It is the mineral imbalance created by taking D3 without enough magnesium to support it. The scientific community has confirmed this relationship. A study published in the Journal of the American Osteopathic Association found that vitamin D cannot be properly metabolized without adequate magnesium. In fact, when magnesium is too low, D3 supplementation becomes inefficient and creates internal stress rather than benefit. The research is clear. Every time you increase your D3 intake, your need for magnesium also increases. When that increase does not happen, the nervous system bears the burden. This effect does not appear overnight. It grows gradually, silently, as magnesium levels fall and calcium becomes the dominant force inside the body. That is why so many seniors assume their symptoms are simply a part of aging. They think muscle twitching is normal. They think their legs are restless because they walk too much during the day. They believe heart flutters are just a sign of getting older, but in many cases, these are early warnings that the body is overwhelmed and asking for balance. Understanding this connection is the first step to restoring stability. When magnesium is brought back into alignment with D3, the nervous system starts to calm, the muscle twitches begin to fade, and the heart regains its steady rhythm. It is remarkable how quickly the body responds when it finally receives what it has been missing. When most people choose a magnesium supplement, they look at the number on the label. They compare the amount of elemental magnesium and often assume that the higher the number, the better the product. This is why magnesium oxide is one of the most commonly purchased forms. It looks powerful on paper. What the label does not tell you is that the body absorbs only about 4% of it. The remaining 96% stays inside your intestinal tract, and that is where the real problem begins. When magnesium oxide sits unabsorbed in the gut, it pulls water into the intestines. At first, this can feel like a mild loosening of the stool. But when this continues, day after day, the bowel is exposed to a constant wave of irritation. Many people experience ongoing diarrhea, watery stools, or an unpredictable urgency that disrupts daily life. Over time, the inner lining of the digestive tract becomes stressed. The tissue is delicate, and repeated irritation slowly erodes its integrity. Research has shown exactly what happens next. A study published in the European Journal of Gastroenterology found that chronic use of poorly absorbed magnesium forms can create low-grade inflammation in the intestinal walls. This type of inflammation does not always cause intense pain, but it gradually damages the tight junctions between cells. These microscopic junctions act as the security gate of your gut, controlling what enters your bloodstream and what should stay inside the digestive tract. When they begin to break down, particles that were never meant to cross into the bloodstream start leaking through. This is what many scientists refer to as increased intestinal permeability. More commonly, people call it leaky gut. When this barrier weakens, the immune system becomes activated. It sees these escaping particles as invaders and begins reacting to them. That immune response can spread throughout the body, leading to issues that feel far removed from the gut. People may notice more joint discomfort, more brain fog, more fatigue after meals, or more general inflammation that shows up in unexpected ways. As the gut is exposed to this constant stress, another issue emerges. The bowel begins to depend on the osmotic effect created by magnesium oxide. In other words, the colon becomes accustomed to the constant pulling of water and begins to rely on it to produce regular bowel movements. When the supplement is removed, normal motility often slows. Many older adults find themselves caught in a cycle where they take magnesium oxide to relieve constipation, only to create the very dependency that keeps the problem going. The tragedy is that this outcome is entirely preventable. The issue is not magnesium itself, the problem is the form. When the body receives magnesium in a form that it can properly absorb, it does not irritate the gut. It moves into the bloodstream efficiently, supports the nerves, calms the muscles, and restores balance without disturbing the intestinal lining. Forms such as magnesium glycinate, magnesium taurate, or a high-quality magnesium malate deliver what the body needs without creating inflammation or disruption. Understanding the difference between these forms can be life-changing. A supplement that seems harmless simply because it is inexpensive or widely available may be silently damaging the digestive system over months or years. But when the right form is chosen, the gut begins to heal, inflammation decreases, and the bowel regains its natural rhythm. This shift alone can improve energy, immunity, and overall well-being in ways that many older adults never expected. One of the most surprising effects of taking vitamin D3 incorrectly is what it can do to your bones. Most people take D3 because they want to strengthen their skeleton, protect themselves from fractures, and maintain mobility as they age. It is a smart intention, but the biology behind it is more complex than it appears. Vitamin D3 is often described as the nutrient that helps you absorb calcium, and that part is true. When you take D3, it acts like a delivery truck, bringing more calcium into your bloodstream from the food you eat. The problem is that D3 does not know where that calcium should go. It is simply a transporter. Once it raises calcium levels in your blood, its job is finished. If your body has the right partners available, everything works beautifully. But if your levels of vitamin K2 are too low, that calcium has no guidance. K2 is the nutrient that activates specific proteins that escort calcium into your bones and keep it out of your arteries and soft tissues. Without K2, the calcium that D3 brings in is left to drift with no destination. It remains suspended in the bloodstream, searching for a place to settle. Magnesium plays a second essential role in this process. Even if K2 directs calcium to the bones, magnesium is required to help form the bone matrix that secures calcium in place. You can think of the bone matrix as the scaffolding that gives structure to your bones. Without enough magnesium, the body cannot use calcium effectively to build and maintain strong, dense skeletons. So even when calcium arrives at the right location, it cannot be incorporated properly. When either one of these partners is missing, the outcome becomes a paradox. You absorb more calcium, but your bones become no stronger. In some cases, they even become weaker. Research has confirmed this. A study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that people who took high-dose vitamin D3 without adequate K2 and magnesium showed no improvement in bone density, and in some cases, their bone density actually decreased. Their bodies were absorbing calcium, but their bones were not keeping it. This leads to two major problems for older adults. The first is that the skeleton gradually loses mineral content. Bones become lighter, more brittle, and more prone to fractures. Many seniors assume this is simply age-related bone loss, but often the deeper cause is the way their supplements are interacting inside the body. The second problem is that the unused calcium begins depositing in places where it does not belong. This is what we call soft tissue calcification. Calcium can accumulate in the joints, in muscle tissue, and most dangerously, inside blood vessel walls. This quiet shift in calcium is one of the reasons some people feel stiffness, reduced flexibility, or unexplained aches, even when they believe they are supporting their bone health. The body is trying to process the extra calcium but cannot place it where it is supposed to go. As a result, the very supplement intended to protect the bones may slowly undermine them instead. Understanding the vitamin D paradox is the key to preventing this. When D3, K2, and magnesium are taken together in proper balance, calcium flows where it is needed, bone density improves, and the risk of soft tissue calcification drops. The body knows exactly what to do when it receives the right tools. It is only when one of these tools is missing that problems begin to appear. When we talk about the effects of taking vitamin D3 incorrectly, one of the most overlooked areas is the kidneys. These two small organs sit quietly in your lower back and work around the clock to keep your blood clean, your electrolytes balanced, and your body functioning smoothly. They filter nearly 50 gallons of blood every day, and they do this without complaint. But when the balance of calcium inside the body shifts too far in one direction, the kidneys are the first to feel the burden. Vitamin D3 increases the amount of calcium your intestines absorb from food. Under normal circumstances, this is helpful. It supports bone health and improves many aspects of metabolism. But if your body cannot use that calcium properly, or if it enters the bloodstream in amounts higher than the tissues can handle, the kidneys must step in to remove the excess. This creates a silent overload. Day after day, the kidneys filter out more calcium than they were designed to handle, and over time, this excess spills into the urine. When calcium concentration in the urine becomes too high, a condition called hypercalciuria begins. At first, there may be no symptoms at all, but inside the kidneys, small crystals start to form. These crystals bind with oxalate and other compounds and gradually grow into stones. People who have experienced kidney stones know that the pain can be some of the most intense a human being can feel, often compared to childbirth. But the immediate pain is only part of the concern. As these stones move through the urinary tract, they scrape and irritate the delicate tissue inside the kidneys and ureters. Each stone leaves behind tiny scars, and each episode of blockage creates pressure that damages the filtering structures known as nephrons. When this cycle repeats, the damage becomes permanent. The kidneys slowly lose their ability to filter waste efficiently, and their structure becomes weakened by repeated inflammation and scarring. What began as a simple imbalance in calcium handling can eventually turn into chronic kidney disease, a condition that reduces energy, increases blood pressure, and raises the risk of serious complications. Medical literature has documented how dangerous this can become. A case published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal described a 64-year-old man who took 50,000 international units of vitamin D3 every day for nearly 3 years without monitoring his blood levels. The result was severe hypercalcemia, where calcium levels rose dramatically. His kidneys became calcified, meaning calcium began depositing directly into the kidney tissue itself. He ultimately required dialysis because the damage was so extensive, and even after treatment, his kidney function never returned to normal. This is an extreme example, but it reminds us that the kidneys cannot warn us when they are struggling. By the time symptoms appear, the damage is often already advanced. This effect does not require extremely high doses to begin. Even moderate doses of D3 can create stress when the body does not have enough vitamin K2 and magnesium to guide and use the calcium correctly. Without these partners, the kidneys are left with the job of clearing what the rest of the body cannot manage. Over months and years, that extra workload can quietly accumulate until it reaches a tipping point. The good news is that this process is preventable. When calcium is properly directed into the bones and used by the tissues, the kidneys do not face this overwhelming burden. When magnesium levels are maintained, the body manages calcium more smoothly, reducing the amount that spills into the urine. And when levels of D3 are monitored with simple blood tests every few months, early warning signs can be detected long before any real harm occurs. Understanding how D3 affects the kidneys is essential for older adults who want to protect their long-term health. The kidneys are resilient, but they are not invincible. They can support you for a lifetime if given the right conditions, and that begins with keeping calcium movement inside the body under careful control. The heart is one of the most remarkable organs in the human body. It beats nearly 100,000 times a day, pumping blood through a network of vessels that reaches every corner of your body. For it to beat with precision, the electrical system that controls each contraction must stay in perfect balance. That balance relies heavily on 3 key electrolytes: calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Each one plays a specific role. Calcium triggers the heart muscle to contract, magnesium allows it to relax, potassium helps maintain the steady rhythm that carries the signal from one heartbeat to the next. When vitamin D3 increases calcium absorption and magnesium is not available in the proper amount to balance it, the heart begins to receive signals that are too strong or too frequent. Instead of a smooth cycle of contraction and relaxation, the heart muscle becomes more excitable. The electrical system becomes unstable, and this instability can show up in ways that feel frightening to many older adults. Some people begin to experience skipped beats, moments when the heart feels like it pauses and then suddenly catches up. Others feel episodes of fluttering in the chest, a sensation that can last seconds or minutes. Some feel their heart pounding even when they are sitting still. And for many, the symptoms come and go unpredictably, which creates anxiety because they cannot understand why it is happening. These are signs that the balance between calcium and magnesium is slipping out of alignment. When calcium dominates, the heart muscle stays in a more contracted state. Over time, this affects the way the heart fills with blood. Diastolic function, which allows the heart to relax and refill properly, becomes impaired. The result is a heart that works harder than it should, even during rest. Many older adults begin to feel short of breath with mild activity or more fatigued after routine tasks, not realizing the source of the problem is inside the mineral balance that controls every beat. Scientific research has shown how serious this can become. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that individuals with low magnesium levels had significantly higher rates of atrial fibrillation. This is one of the most common arrhythmias in older adults and a major risk factor for stroke. When magnesium is insufficient, the heart is much more likely to fall out of rhythm because the electrical system cannot stabilize the surge of calcium driven by D3. It is important to remember that these changes do not always appear suddenly. They often build gradually, beginning with small irregularities, then episodes of flutters or pounding sensations, and eventually more noticeable rhythm issues. Because the symptoms vary from day to day, many people attribute them to stress, caffeine, dehydration, or simply getting older. But when the underlying cause is an electrolyte imbalance triggered by improper use of D3 and magnesium, correcting that balance can bring remarkable relief. The heart thrives when calcium, magnesium, and potassium are maintained in harmony. When that harmony is restored, the rhythm steadies, the pounding quiets, and the heart begins to work with the ease and stability it was designed for. This is why understanding how supplements influence the heart is essential for long-term cardiovascular health, especially for older adults who want to stay active, independent, and strong. Among all the effects we have talked about, the most dangerous and the most silent is what happens inside your arteries when calcium loses its direction. Your blood vessels are meant to be flexible, living tissues. With every heartbeat, they expand slightly to accommodate the surge of blood, and then they gently contract to maintain pressure and keep circulation smooth. This elasticity is one of the most important features of a healthy cardiovascular system. But when vitamin D3 increases the amount of calcium entering your bloodstream, and there is not enough vitamin K2 to guide it into the bones, that excess calcium begins to settle inside the walls of your arteries. Slowly at first, then more noticeably over time, calcium deposits begin to form. These deposits act like tiny grains of sand inside a water pipe, gradually hardening and stiffening the vessel. What was once flexible becomes rigid. Many cardiologists describe this process as turning soft arteries into rigid pipes, and that is exactly what it feels like inside the body. As the arteries stiffen, blood pressure begins to rise. A rigid vessel cannot absorb the force of each heartbeat the way a flexible one can. The heart must pump harder to push blood through these narrowed, calcified areas. Over time, the heart muscle thickens, the workload increases, and the entire cardiovascular system becomes strained. Calcified spots inside the arteries also become ideal places for plaque to form. As plaque builds up, the opening of the artery becomes smaller, which restricts blood flow even more and increases the risk of complete blockage. This is why arterial calcification is one of the strongest predictors of heart attack and stroke. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology followed more than 25,000 participants and found that the coronary artery calcium score was the single most powerful indicator of future cardiovascular events. Stronger than cholesterol levels, stronger than blood pressure, stronger than smoking history. Calcium in the arteries is a direct window into how vulnerable the cardiovascular system has become. The key element that protects against this process is vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form. K2 activates proteins that remove calcium from the arteries and direct it toward the bones, where it belongs. When K2 is present in adequate amounts, it acts like a traffic controller, pulling calcium away from the vessel walls and guiding it back to the skeletal system. Without K2, the calcium that D3 brings in has nowhere to go except the soft tissues, creating a long-term threat that grows unnoticed. Arterial calcification happens silently. There are often no early symptoms. Many people feel completely fine until the process is far advanced. That is why understanding how D3 K2, and magnesium work together is critical for protecting your heart and blood vessels. When these nutrients are balanced, your arteries stay flexible, your blood pressure stays stable, and your heart continues to work efficiently with every beat. Now that you have seen the full picture, you can understand why taking vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium correctly is so important for your long-term health. When these supplements are not in balance, 6 major effects begin to unfold inside the body. The nervous system becomes overstimulated, leading to twitching, cramping, and irregular signals. The digestive tract becomes irritated when the wrong form of magnesium is used, creating inflammation and weakening the gut lining. The bones can actually lose density when D3 brings in calcium that never reaches the skeleton. The kidneys become overloaded as they try to remove excess calcium, increasing the risk of stones and long-term damage. The heart begins to lose its stable rhythm when electrolytes fall out of balance. And finally, calcium can settle into the arteries, hardening them and increasing the risk of heart attack and stroke. The good news is that all of these effects are preventable